Thanks for staying with us on the program. Welcome to this session where we'll be talking about several issues, from issues of related to Nigerians in diaspora, issues of COVID-19, the U.S. Presidential elections, the outcome, so many issues. I want to urge you to stay with us on this session because it promises to be quite enlightening, quite informative, and it will be compelling. Okay, my guest, let me introduce my guest so you know why we'll be talking about several issues. You know, when we have a resource person who we want to, tap into his wealth of knowledge, find out his own opinions on several issues, we love to do as much as we can. Now, my guest is a former national president of the Akwa Ibom State Association of Nigeria, United States of America Incorporated, popularly known as AKISAN. That was between 2014 to 2016. He has held various management and administrative capacities for the government of Philadelphia. He is a real estate investor. He schooled in the University of Calabar, has a master's from Widener University, a PhD in public administration from American Trinity University, and when he lived here in Nigeria permanently, he was a secondary school teacher. That's over 2 decades. That's Dr. John Etim. Thanks for joining us on Centerpoint AM45 this morning.
Thank you, Mercy, for having me.
Yeah, so you have lived over 2 decades out of Nigeria.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and okay, your times before you traveled out, can you make a little comparison? How was it when you lived there and when you got back there, and now you're back?
Looking at Akwa Ibom State or Nigeria, there has been significant changes, and I want to thank the different government that have been responsible for this. When I was here, a lot of the infrastructure that we have today were not here, but thank God we have been blessed with some very ingenious administrators that have brought those changes to bear. So there has been a lot of changes.
Okay. Now, COVID-19 is in the news, has been in the news since February, March from across the globe. And now I want to ask this. You were in the United States when the outbreak of the pandemic hit the globe. Now, what were your thoughts then? First of all, what was the experience like where you live? That's Philadelphia.
Right.
Okay. And then what were your thoughts about people, Nigerians, Africans? What were your thoughts? Because there were some thoughts from different people from across the world on how the pandemic was going to hit Africa.
Incidentally, I had just left Akwa Ibom in February from a short visit, and as soon as I landed, things took a totally different turn. I remember my job was locked down completely from March. I only went to work for 1 week, and then subsequent to that, we didn't go to work for several months. The impact was really enormous. A lot of people at that initial stage lost their lives. People were scared. Incidentally, about my people in Africa, in Nigeria and Akwa Ibom, I wasn't too worried because I know we are very resilient people. We have had experiences with Ebola before and some other global health issues, and the impact that we usually experience in this part of the world is usually not as serious as what is experienced in other parts of the world. So I was very sure the situation will be the same. And upon coming back a week ago, I was not surprised. I mean, I'm still suggesting and telling people to be cautious, to wear their mask, to maintain social distancing, which is what is going on in that part of the world. Churches are still locked down, many of them. Even those that are opened, there are strict regulations regarding social distancing. Every other pew is left vacant, and people are sitting 6 feet apart. Most hotels have been shut down. All nightclubs have been shut down. In many states, including Pennsylvania, where I live, bars have been shut down. And at the point, the governor opened the bars, or gave permission for bars to be opened for limited takeout services. So in other words, you don't sit in the bar, you have to go to the takeout window and buy what you have to buy and go home. The same thing with restaurants. So the impact has been great. The healthcare system is overwhelmed. Doctors are dying, nurses are dying, but by the grace of God, we in this part of the world, we are not having such serious experiences. So all we can do is just thank God.
Okay. Now, COVID-19 came as an eye-opener, if you ask me, to our health system.
Yes.
Now, you have stayed abroad for decades.
Yes.
Now, with all of that, what do you think the Nigerian government can do with regards our health system, with regards policies, with regards manpower, with regards the infrastructure, so that when anything like this comes up, we won't just be taken unawares? What do you think can be done?
I think the government have to be more proactive in a very concerted way. Our health system, without a doubt, has so much to be desired. Infrastructurally, manpower-wise, we don't have enough doctors, we don't have enough nurses to provide services to the population, especially those at the grassroots. And there are no infrastructures. There are some people that have to travel several miles to have access to healthcare services. I travel around and make some stops in some hospitals, and the equipment there are outdated or very old or totally out of service. I think some of the doctors and nurses also feel helpless because they don't have the tools to work with. I must commend the Akwa Ibom state government for the initiative it takes from time to time to inject new life into the healthcare delivery system through the Ibom Specialist Hospital, through the renovation of hospitals like Etim, which the government did during the pandemic, and a lot of other efforts. But more still have to be done. As you are aware, most of the medical system in many parts of the world are actually energized and maintained by Nigerians. We have healthcare professionals of all disciplines, of all specialties. We have surgeons, we have anesthesiologists, we have radiologists of Nigerian descent, in fact of Akwa Ibom's descent. One of the frontline contributors to the vaccine is actually a Nigerian, is the son of one of my professors at UNICA. Oh. So Nigerians are actually making waves and helping improve the healthcare delivery systems of other parts of the world. So I implore them to use their ingenuity, their education, their training, and other resources to try and help their home country. But that said, we still have a lot to do in terms of manpower, even including training. Something as basic as trauma training to help people in accident cases, people with emergency situations. In Nigeria, if you go to a hospital or clinic with any kind of ailment, including accidents, they ask you to buy a card, to pay a deposit. Yeah. Somebody's dying, you're asking for a deposit. That is just inhuman in my own assessment. I think either the government or somebody, NGOs, should make arrangements to look critically at the needs of the system and see what can be done to alleviate the issues, the problems that people are facing. And the list goes on. Insurance policies. Many parts of the world, including the US, you have so many choices. If you work, your job can give you medical insurance. If you are poor and homeless, the government provides some basic insurance policies for you so that you can pay for health care. And the list goes on. But I really think that we in the diaspora, in conjunction or partnership with the government, in conjunction or partnership with NGOs, in conjunction or partnership with global conglomerates that provide these services, because there are some that are very willing to provide services to help people in the third world countries to rebuild or build their healthcare system. We should get involved. We should not relax and enjoy the goodies in our present location and forget our grandparents and parents here. I think a lot has to be done.
Okay, that's on the health sector here in Nigeria. Now, away from issues of health, we might get back to that in the course of our discussion.
Right.
Away from that, another issue I would love to take you on is the elections, the electoral process. Before I get to the electoral process of Nigeria, let me find out from you first your opinion, your stance, the U.S. presidential elections. Trump is out according to the Electoral College right now. Biden should be coming in. Now, my question is this: what do you think about the Republicans are out, the Democrats are going to take the seat of leadership? What's your stance on the policies of the Democrats? Will it favor Nigerians? When Trump came in, people already made speculations he wouldn't favor blacks, he wouldn't favor the blacks, he wouldn't favor Nigerians and all of that, and we saw that come out to play. So what are your thoughts? What kind of speculations can you make?
I think most policies are tweaked by the individuals at the helm of affairs. In other words, now that Joe Biden is very likely going to become the U.S. president in the next few weeks, we will definitely be at the advantage. And I say that because he has an affinity for people of color. That was displayed by his closeness to Obama. That has been recently displayed by his choice of a vice president, by choosing a woman not only of color but of a foreign descent. So I'm very sure that Nigerians, Africans as a whole, will have a place at the table. In fact, before I departed from the country, from the US, he had made 2 appointments of Nigerians. So I think he is going to make policies that are Nigerian friendly because of his affinity to our people.
Okay. Now to the electoral process back here, people have been calling for reforms and all of that. The one I'm concerned with right now is, the issue of having diasporans to participate in the electoral process. What's your stance on that?
I think we should go back to base our reasoning on he who pays the piper dictates the tune. The diasporans remit millions and millions of dollars down to our home country, and that money goes into the economic system. In other words, they make significant contribution to the gross domestic product of Nigeria as a whole. For that and many other reasons, they should be given a place at the table. And what is the best place? Through the electioneering process. And also, apart from their contributions in that way, most of them have been exposed positively, have been educated positively. Most of them have been a part of a civilized political process. And I think they will be able to make genuine contribution to whatever is going on here. So for that reason, I really think it's about time that diasporans should be given the opportunity to participate in the electioneering process, either as, you know, by contesting elections, or at least by voting. I know that a lot of them will not love to leave their paying jobs to come here and run for positions, but at least the discussion on absentee ballots should be revisited, and people in the diaspora should be given an opportunity at least to vote.
Okay, I know in the United States the Constitution provides that if you have any record of crime, you're not permitted to vote.
Yes.
For the case, would you love, if at all, you know, diasporans are considered, would you love that to also be part of, you know, the rules?
Yes and no. Yes, in the sense that if you can't make a meaningful decision not to commit crime, then you cannot make a meaningful decision to know who to vote for. But at the same time, I know that it's going to make our already complicated system more complicated. In the United States, for instance, everybody has a social security number. So by the time you are going to be scrutinized for voting,
Okay.
your social security number is used. But here, there are so many Fiongapans, probably born on the same day. So it would be difficult to know who committed a crime if there are 3 names at the, you know, in the list.
Okay.
And there was a crime committed by somebody with that name. You may mistakenly victimize the wrong person or exclude the wrong person. So I think we should engage people at the grassroots especially, and see how we can create an identification system for everybody in the country that were something similar to the social security identification system in the United States or in Europe can be adopted here, so that somebody with the name Messi Kerry will not commit a crime in Temeko, and then somebody comes to arrest you here. And in the same vein, I think that will help to identify people that should be denied the opportunity to vote in that process.
Okay. Now, what are your thoughts on, you know, migration for greener pastures? Is the pastures even greener the other way, you know, at the other side?
Great question. As they say, the grass is always greener on the other side. A lot of people, personally, without any intention to discourage anybody from migration, I still think that people should be cautious about their rationale for migrating and also their purposes for migrating, because migration could become a very daunting, a very deceptive, and a very dangerous process. A lot of our people just want to go overseas, and they're not really aware of how challenging it could be when you get there, especially if you are just going with an intention to regularize your status when you get there. Some people will go with a student visa, some go with a visitor's visa, and several other types of visa. If you go there with a visa that does not allow you to work, for instance, and then you look for menial jobs, and then maybe in the process you circumvent the law of the land, and then you are arrested, that starts another rough journey for you, which could have been avoided if you stayed home. So my take is that people should really have a reason and have a platform and be aware of the environment there before traveling to another country, especially the United States or Europe, which a lot of people like to travel to, so that you don't get frustrated. As I speak, a lot of young men and women are in prison because you don't know the law of the land. There are certain things that you do in Uyo or Lagos and get away with. Maybe with a few naira to the police, you can get away with. But that is the same thing you do overseas, and it will definitely land you in prison. So people should be careful. Some people have lost their lives, actually. You know, by saying the wrong thing to the wrong person, you can be killed. So I think people should really know and learn about their new or potential environment before they go. People should be really ready. Even if you're going to school, you know you're going to school. And you should be aware that trying to change your status from a student to a resident is a very daunting and expensive and unpredictable process. So that is something that a lot of people don't know, and they wind up in a very wrong situation.
Okay. Now you brought up the issue of people knowing the rules in other countries. What are those things you hear young Nigerians, you know, fall victims of?
One funny, popular, and serious one is rape. I received a phone call from a young man from one of the universities in Pennsylvania when I was the head of the Akwa Ibom community, a young Akwa Ibomite who was in police custody for rape. Here, most things go, but there, something as simple as a woman telling you no means no. But some people get carried away. And that is a very serious crime. If a woman says no to anything, including touching, that becomes a very serious problem. But in Uyo, I see some ladies walk past, and people that they don't even know touch them inappropriately, you know. And if a young man is traveling from Nigeria and he's been seeing that in Lagos, he's been seeing that in Onitsha, he's seeing that in Uyo, if somebody does not advise him that inappropriate and unpermitted touching can land you in prison, then he may not know. And a few other things. Picking something up in a shop without paying for it, saying the wrong thing to somebody, calling somebody a name could land you in a very serious legal situation. So these are things that people should know, and I'm trying to use an NGO to actually teach what I call new Americans the law and the rules of the system, especially those people that are planning to travel to the United States from Akwa Ibom. I intend to see what I can do to organize some kind of session for them to be aware of the do's and don'ts. And somebody traveled sometime for one of our conventions, was apprehended for carrying too much money. In Akwa Ibom or Nigeria, you can't arrest somebody for carrying a lot of money. But there are stipulations. You cannot carry more than $10,000 into the United States. That is the law. And the police don't openly take bribe. You cannot, that doesn't happen. That doesn't fly there. But if you have been used to doing that, you may think, it's just, they say 10,000, well, I carry 20, no big deal. But that could land you in a very bad situation that you never expected. So those are things that our people have to be aware and our people have to guide against.
Now, still talking about the migration for greener pastures, for you, what was the catch?
After graduating from UNICAL, I was teaching, and I was just not satisfied. So I wanted to go and explore the United States and try to get additional academic qualifications and see, because I heard so much about America, and my father studied over there, and I had uncles, I had cousins that used to show nice pictures of America. So I said, let me just go and figure out, what this place is all about. So 29 years later, here am I.
Okay. So when you got there, like some people say, I went because I heard the streets were paved with gold and all of that. The grass is greeny, greeny, greeny. What was it like for you?
Well, it a lot of things were mind-blowing. A lot of things were new. Things that we take for granted here, some of them are serious. Things that we take seriously here, some of them are taken for granted. Something like smoking Indian hemp. I went to the store, a very big departmental store, and somebody was sitting out in the open in his car playing loud music and smoking Indian hemp. And I was appalled. This is something you cannot do in Uyo. The police will rush you. But so those were the little differences, and people didn't hold hands. I remember walking with my neighbor. I was very happy to find that my next 2 doors away were some Tanzanians, so we became good friends. So we were walking to the mall. I held his hand and shook it off. But I later found out that because of the fact that that is what gays and lesbians do, he didn't want to be identified as one. And here we hold it, hold friends' hands without any fear of being tagged or labeled as such. So a few social differences, but basically, since I was focused on improving myself, I went to school, and that was another difference. The learning process is facilitated by the provision of things like computers, adequate textbooks. So the students are more relaxed. The teachers also are more relaxed. I was used to an education system where they almost use screwdrivers to put the thing in your head. So to go to class, and they call them professors, but they're lecturers basically, telling stories about half of the time in the class, telling stories about his family, and then going to the subject matter of the class was strange, because here when the lecturer gets into class, he starts the class and he doesn't smile, but there it's just playfully imparting knowledge, and it makes things easier. So those were the basic differences that I observed.
Okay. Now here in Nigeria, there are several cases of people falling victims of human trafficking. What would you advise people who are really, really eager to travel abroad so that they don't become victims of human trafficking?
I think one of the characteristics of people that perpetrate human trafficking is showing up as middlemen for overseas travels. So my advice would be that if anybody wants to travel overseas, you should look for legitimate official avenues for getting the traveling documents, visas and so on, rather than looking for a middleman. Because there are a lot of people that come in and pretend or front themselves as people that help people to get visas, and what they do, they recruit people and take them to different countries for prostitution, and sometimes they tell you they're taking you to be a house girl, a house boy, but actually you're going to be a prostitute. So I think one of the main things people should pay attention to is the source of the traveling documents, and then also the countries. The countries that are notorious so far: Libya, Afghanistan, Italy. So if somebody's taking you to Italy, Afghanistan, or Libya to be a house girl, you can be rest assured that you're going to do something more than being a house girl, and it takes a toll on not just the victims but their families, the country, the society, because after being tortured and used, when you come back, there are certain mental health components, things that will happen to you. Some of them even suffer from PTSD, post-traumatic stress syndrome, which is what soldiers experience sometimes when they come back from war. Because what they experience out there is actually like going to war. You see, sometimes you think you're going to die, so by the time you come back, you are totally you are spoiled product in most cases. So I think what the government also should do is to create awareness for these people, and also for those that have become victims. They should be provided some kind of psychological services, like maybe psychologists should see them, they should be counseled, they should be given some kind of entry opportunities into the society. There are a couple of NGOs, international NGOs, that are intervening. So anybody that also finds himself or herself in that situation should look for them and try to report for help.
Okay. Yeah. Now, quite sadly, Nigeria has been given this tag of having people who are fraudulent. Now, how does this tag, this evil, I call it evil tag, how does it affect Nigerians living abroad?
I think primarily it's just the shame. A lot of people are very ashamed of being Nigerians for that reason. I met a gentleman one time, and he was from Calabar. I could tell from his name. So when I what's your name? And he mentioned, oh, are you from Calabar? He said, no. Are you from Nigeria? I said, no. I said, where are you from? He said, I'm from Calabar. I said, but where is Calabar? So he was trying so much, because there were Americans standing around, was trying so much to avoid claiming to be a Nigerian. But he insisted he was from Calabar, but not from Nigeria. I think apart from the shame, it has really put us at a disadvantage. Some people that are making investments all over the world avoid Nigeria, because for them Nigeria implies fraud. They don't think they can find a straightforward person in Nigeria, unfortunately. So I think the Nigerian government has to create an international global propaganda to counter the effect of these activities by these notorious individuals, and also use strong sanctions for them when they return, because most of them, when they are arrested, especially if they are not citizens of the countries, especially like America, if you're not an American citizen, if you are arrested for fraud, you definitely be repatriated at some point. Okay. So I think the Nigerian government should make it unattractive to go overseas and commit those crimes. It affects us even at the state level, because now that Akwa Ibom is pursuing industrialization, trying to invite investors in, when they hear Nigeria, they get discouraged. So I think the effect of the activities of these fraudsters and scammers are really far-reaching. And as you know, if these investors come, whatever they do is going to help us, help the young people, get employment, help them to have a source of income, help them to improve their self-worth. It will reduce idle time. It will reduce the involvement of young people in anti-social activities. It will reduce unwanted pregnancies, because an idle man's heart is the devil's workshop. It will also reduce the current youth restiveness that the country is fighting with. So what the people are doing by scamming and defrauding has very far-reaching impact.
Okay. Now, again, what are your thoughts on having diasporans? Should diasporans be mandated to give back to their home country?
Well, they should, but I don't think there is a way of actually mandating them.
Okay.
I really feel that this is where their roots are. This is where they started. This is the place that is responsible for whoever they may be today. This is their beginning. So they have every reason, or we have every reason, to contribute to the development of this land, contribute to the development of this country, contribute to the development of our individual states. Because where we live or where they live, that have 24 hours electricity, they have clean water running, they were also developed by people, you know. They didn't run away from there to go and reside somewhere else. If everybody ran away from America, it will just look like a Karafon. So I think it becomes necessary for all of us to look at Nigeria, to look at Akwa Ibom as a place that could become as developed as any other place in the world. If we all contribute, if we all make concerted effort to build it, if we shift our resources down here, our skills, if we decide to take a young man or woman under our wings, if we decide to give scholarships, if we decide to buy, if even one person in the diaspora buys an equipment for a school or a hospital, the impact will be unbelievable. But so that is my advice, that people in the diaspora should not forget their home. They should make contributions so that our tomorrow would definitely be better than today.
Okay. Personally, have you done such also? Two-in-one question. Your time as president of AKISAN, that's between 2014 and 2016, what impact were you able to make?
Before I became the national president of AKISAN, I was actually the international president of a Foroko association. And during that period, I initiated the repair of the outpatient department of the Anwa Hospital. We sent books to all secondary schools in a Fort Clan. We gave scholarships. And I went with the same spirit when I took over AKISAN. We gave scholarships to students at all tiers of education, especially in the universities. We provided books to libraries, including your library. We organized yearly medical missions, which brought in, at my time, about 80 doctors and over 100 nurses to the 3 senatorial districts in the state, where we conducted thousands of medical procedures, cesarean section, you name it. In addition, I also organized for a 40-foot container with about $500,000 worth of equipment to be sent down here to one of the hospitals. So that is the spirit. That is, I'm always thinking about my home, because I know I have only one home. Wherever else I am, I'm a visitor. So instead of spending my energy and resources to develop somebody else's home, I think I should do that to develop my own home. So that is what has been driving me.
Okay, and you think others should do that as well?
Exactly.
Okay. Now to Akwa Ibom State now. Now Akwa Ibom State has a brand under the leadership of Governor Don Emmanuel. What's your perception of this brand? Is it a brand that is marketable globally?
Absolutely. I think even before our amiable governor came on board, we as a people are very hospitable, and that is known. That is our brand. That is our cultural brand.
Okay.
And a Akwa Ibom person will open his or her house to you, and sometimes people from other parts of the country misread that. It's just our culture to be hospitable, to be nice to people, especially strangers. But with the advent of our governor, that has been taken up a notch. His experience and exposure in the banking industry has really done the state a great deal of advantage. He has used his name and position and experiences and relationships to more easily bring in investors, people that he met, because I'm just amazed by the number of investors that keep coming in here, in spite of, what they hear about Nigerians. So I'm very sure that it is his relationship. Secondly, I know that he had a plan to develop, according to his 5 points agenda, and his completion agenda is very comprehensive. He has built on that as time goes on. He has focused on agriculture, knowing that that is the road to development beyond oil. He has supported young people in giving them skills, some of them overseas. He has brought in real industries. He has developed the Ibakasi as an entry point, to bring in goods from all parts of the world. And Akwa Ibom right now is the only governmental entity with an airline. That is something even the federal government cannot boast of. So the list goes on. I think we are very blessed. We are very blessed with the governor and the way that he has polished up the Akwa Ibom brand.
Okay. Now, what do you think about people, Akwa Ibomites in diaspora? What are their thoughts? I know you have conversations with them every now and then. What are their thoughts in terms of investing in Akwa Ibom State? What are their challenges? What are those limitations to investing in Akwa Ibom State? I
think their number one challenge is the knowledge of the system, which I think the government should do more about. They should provide information. They should provide information on how to navigate the system, on how approval should be obtained, on how C of O should be obtained by those trying to buy land, on how taxes are paid on different kinds of things. For those that are trying to start up industries, what are their responsibilities to the government? And they should make it as accessible as possible. That way they don't fall in the hands of fraudsters, because that is the other challenge. Some of them have tried before to start a business. Unfortunately, they go through the wrong route and get defrauded. So, and when the news go around, others will say, no, I'm not coming, so that I don't get defrauded. Also, I think availability of enabling environment and finance. I'm sure that there are some procedures for banks here to provide some kind of financial assistance. So that if somebody has, say, $1 million to invest, and the bank has another $1 million to match as a loan, those people should be educated on how to have access to these funds and all this information. So those are the things I would advise the government to try and provide to increase the number of diasporans that are willing to come back home and invest.
So now that you're home, I believe you'll be home for Christmas.
Yes.
I'm sure you look forward to a good time.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. It's been quite enlightening, talking with you this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. My guest has been, he was the former president of Akwa Ibom State Association of Nigeria, United States of America. That's AKISAN, between 2014 to 2016. Thank you so much, Dr. John Etim. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
The rest of Centerpoint AM45 continues in just a moment. Just stay with us.